And welcome into the Bobby Carpenter Show on this wonderful Tuesday, immediately after Labor Day. And we've got a big and exciting show today. We're going to be joined by Bill Bender in a little bit. But first, a surprise coming at you, directly from, I don't know, Lieutenant Governor's mansion, wherever he lives, up in Akron, Ohio, the sprawling palace that he has and shares with his lovely wife, Ellen. Coach, we appreciate you spending some time with us today. You've got a lot of ground to cover here, because you've got your initiative, the Governor's Challenge that we want to talk about as well. But I did see you down on the field for the game, talking to Mac Brown. You guys obviously had some battles back in the day, and just kind of your thoughts generally on what you saw in the Horseshoe on Saturday.
Well, it's starting off with the atmosphere was fabulous. Sometimes it's hard to get that rolling on a noon game, but the fans were ready. They got up early and got prepared. And the atmosphere was great. Two young teams, let's face it, they both lost a lot of players. And more importantly, they lost a lot of maturity. And so you had two young teams on the field fighting like mad. When you see these two teams in November, they'll probably look totally different. But it was a good win for us. And it's always good to have a battle that you come up with a win, and that was a good battle.
Yep. How do you consume football? Because like Bob and I, I'm sitting in the stands and I'm talking to my kids, explaining what they're doing on the back end that I know because Bob and I are familiar with the defense, and I'm looking at guys and I'm seeing what Texas is trying to do, and I'm just consuming it different now after having played and coached for so long. When you're there on the sideline, how do you consume football in that type of environment and setting?
Well, the one thing I couldn't do is sit in the stands and talk to anybody. That much I know about myself. I was over at the Wisconsin-Purdue game, I think it was 2 years ago, whatever Luke's first year was. And I said, I will never sit in the stands ever again. And then when you're up in the booth, everyone wants to say, oh, why'd they do that? Or, hey, what do you think they'll do? It's like, well, so I like to stand by myself, just watch the game, just like you did when you were coaching, you were by yourself, focused in on it. And I just like to kind of feel it, when you don't know the players intimately, it's different because you don't have expectations and you're just kind of looking at what they do. But, it was a beautiful day and kids are playing hard and a little bit like most first games. It wasn't perfect, but now you got some film to teach from. And I just enjoyed, seeing some good athletes going at each other.
Coach, you're an offensive guy, and offensive guys inherently usually like to score a lot of points. That was Ryan's background as well. And I think at some point, a lot of coaches make that transition where I'm not just the coach of the offense, I'm coaching the entirety of the team. And so while scoring 45 points is great, getting a win is better. And so how do we do that? And it feels like, Ryan, that transition has kind of fully happened for him, where you can be satisfied with a defensive performance where your offense was efficient, mistake-free, opportunistic offense, coach, relentless defense, superior special units, and being able to kind of embrace that as opposed to maybe feeling the need to go out and just score a lot of points every game.
Well, and your team as you're going along. There are times when you say, you know what, these other guys were playing, they're probably going to score some points. And so, you've got to look at things differently. But complementary football is what it's all about. Your offense's number one job is never put your defense in a bad position. And, defensively, you just got to keep coming at them. And what I thought as I watched that game was that, football is the game of pressure, and you're either applying it or you're reacting to it. And I thought our defense did a good job of applying pressure in terms of how they were lining up, the confusion, the hesitation. I thought they did a good job at that. I don't think Texas did a very good job of applying offensive pressure on our defense. They just kind of lined up the same way every time and let us disguise. And so I'm sure there'll be a lot of people, looking at the film saying, hey, what could we have done better? But, anytime number 4 is out there, there's pressure on that defense because that guy is amazing.
Yep. Now, so a lot of good takeaways, a lot of good film. Guys are in there celebrating the wins, right? Celebrating the being able to see the culture and the training and the practice on film as a team. And you always did that for us, which I love because we silo ourselves sometimes to linebacker or defensive play. But you also got to see the guys on the offense or special teams spilling it. Now you're going into a Grambling week. What do you say to a younger team, but coming off of a big win, beating the number one team at home? Now you're going into a Grambling week. Like what do you say to your teams coming off of those highs, and especially now that you mentioned that they're a younger team?
I think what you try to be as consistent as you can. We used to always tell our coaches, you better grade the film the same way, whether we won the game or lost. You can't be all happy because we won and relax your standards. Nor if we lost the game, you can't all of a sudden turn into some ogre that you never were throughout how the kids known you. Well, the same is true with opponents. You have to, go through your practice and everything else with the same expectations, knowing it's a little harder for the players from a standpoint of it's not difficult to get ready to be focused against Texas, but will it be harder against Grambling? Yes. And that's just something you got to know. But you try to be consistent, but the stretch of the next couple games until the conference starts is a hard stretch. I mean, you just have to know that going in, but I don't think you change who you are as a coach, and really what you're counting on is your leaders. If your leaders are setting the standard, then you got a chance.
Absolutely. Before we start getting into some of your initiative, you've got coaches out there all over the place. You talked about Coach Fickle, obviously getting a big win over in Wisconsin, a guy who, I'm so incredibly impressed with how he's matured in his coaching career. But you see these guys, Tress, and when they're an intern or a coaching assistant in college, they're setting up bags. And then you see them on Thursday night beating the number 25 team in the country, beating the brakes off of them with Alex Golish at the South Florida Bulls. Just what he's been able to do down there and taking a program in a unique part of the country that doesn't even have their own stadium and being able to kind of morph that into something where they've got a ton of momentum going.
Well, they're building a new stadium.
Yeah,
and it's going to be beautiful. And Tampa is a great place to be a football coach. There's a bunch of football players within about 3 hours of that place, and they've slowly grown that program. He came in and did a nice job, and he's got a plan in place. He's in a tough league. It's not going to be an easy road, but we've got a lot of those guys, that were student coaches, whether it's Pat Stewart now is over at Nebraska, or Kevin Megank is up there at the Bills, or John Stryker is Vrabel's number one guy, there at the Patriots. Those guys all started as student coaches, taking classes, getting paid zero. I don't even know if they went to class because they were in the Woody 18 hours a day. But there's guys all over the place doing that, and it just goes to show you, if you're willing to roll your sleeves up and do whatever is needed and bust your rear end, good things can happen as long as you get around good people. And they were fortunate to latch on with good people. Scott Sika's up there as like the assistant general manager of the Lions, and it's fun to watch those guys beyond your normal staff guys that progress.
Yeah, and I just want to make a statement because we want to get in this initiative, but I just hope everybody out there knows and appreciates this about our lieutenant governor and our former coach. But Flex there, Golick, you had Marcus had a really tough game in Miami.
Yep.
All the people that you mentioned, all the people that are already on Ohio State staff that you coached, you still make time for them, and you always reach out to them, even former guys like us. And that's what he is. That's what he's about. So, Bob, I just want to make that statement clear because you're always about the people and you're still investing them long after they left Ohio State. But, Bob, let's get in this initiative because it's really special.
Well, he's the guy to talk about it, and wanted to bring fitness back in a big way. And this hit me close, Coach. I mean, both of my parents were phys ed teachers. My mother-in-law also was a phys ed teacher, and wanting to get kids up off the couch, get them out of the machines and into the three-dimensional world. You got a bunch of your former players helping you out. Talk a little bit about what we're trying to do in the great state of Ohio.
Well, it's really, I have to give all credit to the governor, because when he told me he wanted me to be the lieutenant governor, I said, I don't even know what the lieutenant governor does. And he said, whatever I tell you to do. And I said, okay. And he said, one of the things is I want to get a fitness initiative. So we went to work on it, and we met with a lot of people, Mike DeAndrea, because of the T3 things he had, the Ohio Association of Health and Phys Ed Directors, blah, blah, blah. And we settled in on 4th through 8th graders. We thought this would be a good transformative spot, and that we wanted to make sure it was there for everyone, whether you're in a wheelchair. We had a guy in one of the assemblies last week. He was in his wheelchair doing dips out in front of the entire school. I mean, it was like, but so we wanted this to be available wherever you are in your fitness level, whatever degree that interests you or not. And we're also going to make sure not only do we get you moving in a bronze, then a silver, then a gold medal level. That was Teddy Ginn's idea, to have those 3 levels. We're going to talk about nutrition. We're going to talk about rest. We're going to talk about all of the things and just progressing as we go. And I think we're in the neighborhood of 175,000 kids signed up right now, 650 or 60 schools. I think people still have until this coming Monday. They can sneak in. They won't get a printed workbook because we only printed 165,000 of them, but they can go and get those online. And it was great to see all the guys demonstrating. Our YouTube channel will be up pretty soon, and you'll see Bobby Carpenter up there, and Schlegs, and Michael Adams doing yoga, and you'll see some former lady student athletes, and this thing will keep growing. I want to get guys that played for us at YSU. I was talking to the head coach at Toledo. He wants to get his guys involved. We're going to get guys from all over the state, and it's going to be about the Buckeyes being in the best condition of any state in the union.
I love it. And that, the good thing too is you're meeting them where they are. You're making it fun. You're making it engagement. There's resources of how deep they want to go with the rabbit hole. Big thing is getting the parents involved and celebrating their kids and what they're doing, because they're trying to make a lifestyle change. How do you get the parents involved? But it's regardless of where you are in your fitness journey, let's get on the fitness journey, and then let's continue to get better. And I love that Teddy threw that in there, because that's how you do it. You motivate people by giving them, aspirational living, and let's go get there.
You guys would have loved watching Teddy Ginn over. We went 9 cities in 3.5 days. And, Teddy's kind of quiet and so forth.
Yeah.
By the end of time, I mean, you should have seen how he grew. And, we would play the highlight of him running that punt back against Michigan in 2004. And, it was up on these big screens, in their gymnasiums or their auditorium. And they're cheering like it was live. They thought they're 4th graders. They thought that was live TV. Then they got to see Teddy Ginn and just to see how he will really embrace this and get a bunch of you guys and a bunch of ladies involved and trying to make a difference.
So, Coach, one of the added benefits and elements of this is, it's important to be physically fit, but then how that transitions also to the academic side and just kind of the holistic approach. And I know that there's studies, and I'm sure everybody has researched that, but could you talk maybe a little bit about that, just as being, the triangle that Schlegs and I will talk about, the rest, the diet, and obviously the exercise, but then how that pours into your ability on the other side, on the academic end, to maybe be a higher achiever there with maybe increased levels of fitness.
Oh, no question. In fact, the thing we're talking to these young kids about is that, this is going to, A, make you feel better physically. B, it's going to help you be a better student. C, your behavior in the classroom will be impacted. You'll be a better friend. You'll be a better sibling. You'll be a better son or daughter. If you feel better, you perform better. And we want you to feel better. So you got to give us a chance to give us a try, and you'll see the difference it makes in your life when you feel better.
Absolutely. I mean, I know that I always feel better when I work out. It allows me to lock in to do the rest of my day. And it's vital that they get that. And the cool thing is that you're teaching them that they can do these things wherever.
Yeah.
That's the point. And you're showing them accountability with their teammates, classmates, and how workouts are better when you have a partner and you bring somebody along. Like you always had guys. Okay, you're just not here by yourself. You got to bring somebody along with you to hold them accountable. But that's what we're trying to do in our culture and the brotherhood that is Ohio State. What has been some of the most impactful things that you have seen as you started this through the educator's lens of why this is important?
It's interesting just being in those 9 schools with, 500 or 600 people in the assemblies and whatnot, and then to hear the kids' comments. Probably the thing that hit me the most was they were so proud that we came to their school, and all of a sudden they felt important. And so just making sure that all these folks, and that's why we want to get out to so many of these schools. We're going to try to get to all 500 and some between the group of us. So I think that was number one, is to they felt that we care, and we do. I think the second one was even these young kids saying, you know what, I guess I realize I need to be more active. I can't wait. I'm going to go all the way to gold medal. It was fun hearing those. I remember one kid on an interview, it was at the Stream School in the inner city of Cleveland. He was saying, my diet's trash. I'm going to start eating better. They're just real, when you're in 6th grade. And so, just like anything else, you get what you emphasize, right?
Yep. You get what you
Absolutely,
emphasize.
Coach. One more quick one before we get you out of here. I'm always a big proponent, and my wife yells at me for, my relentless desire to kind of exercise.
I've never heard Courtney yell at you once. She talks politely, but go ahead.
She does. But I don't like criticism, Coach. I like a generation of affirmation. I just want affirmed in all of my beliefs all the time. So I work out, and I go, part of it is, they go, why do you do this? I go, it's the only thing that clears my mind and clears my head. Yeah. And Ryan Day goes and plays tennis and plays really hard. Yeah. What was did you have a release or something you could do physically active to kind of decompress when you were coaching?
Well, I'd like to get my workout in early in the morning before everyone got there, because, I had a lot to do. So workout, then quiet time, and then I'm ready for 18 hours.
I love it.
I love it.
Love it, Coach. We appreciate the time. I'm excited. I know everybody's pumped about the initiative. You've got about another year and 3 quarters. So pedal to the metal.
Make a difference. Sprint through the finish line.
Exactly. That's tremendous. We appreciate it, Coach. Thank you so much. Get back to doing real work, and the great job for all of our citizens in the state. And we thank you for coming on.
All right, man. Talk to you later. See you.
See you, Coach.
There he is, the legendary Jim Tressel. Did a great job there. Some insights on the Texas game, seeing Mac Brown, thoughts there. And then also he's trying to improve the state and doing it a big way. Schlegs, we're going to take a quick break here. We got Bill Bender on the other side. But first, I'm going to tell you, FanDuel is getting ready for the NFL season, starting Thursday with an offer you don't want to miss. New customers can bet just $5, get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, $5. If it wins, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets across the app. You can build parlays, bet player props, ride the live lines, whatever your style. FanDuel has you covered. The NFL season, it's almost here. Only question is, are you ready to play? Visit FanDuel.com/bigplay to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Must be 21 older and present in Ohio or present in Pennsylvania. First online real money wager only. First $5 deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Creative, experience, results. That's what drives growth. That's what builds brands. That's Lake Spur Marketing, a full-service agency built on trust, strategy, and performance, not fluff. From bold strategies to flawless execution, every campaign is rooted in smart planning and driven by clear goals. We don't chase clicks. We build partnerships. We show up, dig in, and deliver every single time. Lake Spur Marketing. The proof is in our partners.
All right, Schlegs. We got our guy, Bill Bender. He's going to be hopping on here momentarily. Oh, my gosh. He's already here, ready to go, ready to rock. Bill, it's the second time you followed Coach Tress, so I apologize. No one wants to back clean up after him. Like, it's Ryan Day hates talking after Tress. He's like, make him go after me so that I don't sound as ignorant because he's such an eloquent speaker up there. But a huge game, Bill. I mean, you've been bouncing around. Big games all over the place this weekend. Did you have one in particular that you thought you learned the most from coming out of Labor Day?
Well, we can start there. Well, Jim Tressel, Coach Tressel, obviously he was in a conversation before the game with Mac Brown and Matthew McConaughey. I'm not quite in that zip code where I could butt in and be the fourth. So obviously,
hey, what's up, guys?
That was the best part of the pregame for me, is kind of seeing those three talk. And, obviously Mac and Tressel coached in that amazing game in 2005. And, we got this defensive struggle. The pregame at Ohio State was unlike any noon game I think I've ever been at, between the Lee Corso experience in the end zone. And like I said, McConaughey throwing up the hook 'em horns at the Ohio State student section, the changes made to the stadium, and Glenn Powell was running around. It was like I just kind of randomly walked by him. But in terms of pageantry and everything that's great about college football, and we talked about it here, about the noon factor. Well, Ohio State's fans brought it. It was as loud as can be for 4 quarters, and it was an amazing experience. And what I learned from that game is defense can still dominate, and both defenses were good. Ohio State's defense is outstanding with Matt Patricia, and Texas's defense is really good with the guys they have too. So it was a fun game in every phase.
Yeah, I mean, it was that experience when our guys came out for their warm-ups and they played War Pig, and the sound and the bass and the juice and amplifying the band. And I do like him in the south end zone. I mean, it's nice. It's closed. It was super loud down there. And you're right. And somebody was talking about the running game being a little lackluster or non-sexy, but I think sometimes we forget that Texas was the number 1 team in the country for a reason, and they do have a top 10 defense, right? So it's good on good in these type of games. Defensively, Richard, what were some of your biggest takeaways from Matt Patricia game 1 Ohio State football Silver Bullet defense of 2025?
Well, if Sark can't pick up the coverages and the disguises, how am I supposed to do that? How's Arch supposed to do that? I think the linebackers, the delayed blitz, there was one play where I think Sonny blitzed, and Arch did get away from it. So he does have some mobility, but just everything they were throwing at Arch from the back 7, very well done by Matt Patricia. Just how happy he was, and getting that explanation from him afterward that, I missed those NFL preseason games, and here's why. But the way he was able to, confuse Texas a lot. And then, obviously offensively with Ohio State, you mentioned the running backs, but part of that is, well, the 2 guys that they lost are top 50 picks who everybody's drafting in their last minute fantasy drafts, whether it's Quinshawn or Travion. I took Travion pretty high last night as my number 2 running back on what could be a championship team as well. So I think that's part of it, but they'll work out the kinks in that over the next couple weeks.
Concerned on Arch at all, or is this just first game, road game, great defense?
I'm about to dig into that this afternoon, and a couple things. I thought, one, he was inaccurate. The first throw, that was a nice design play, supposed to go to DeAndre Moore, and he missed him. And he missed a couple guys. But in those last 2 drives, I mean, the other way to look at it is it was a 1-score game. The touchdown pass was pretty. And I did like afterward, he sounds exactly like his uncles that we heard for years. I got to play better. That starts with me. Total accountability after the loss, which I always like to see. But again, up against the best defense in the country, right now in week 1, Ohio State, LSU, those 2 teams really proved that the defense is going to matter. I thought the Tigers had a great night as well, but and that's not an accident. 3 of the last 4 national champions led the country in scoring defense. Georgia in 21, Michigan in 23, Ohio State last year. So if you've got this nasty defense, you guys probably have better insight into that than I do as to why these defenses are dominating, maybe they've caught up to some of the concepts in offense in college football.
That's interesting you said that. And now that also was a huge factor in this game when Texas goes 1 for 5 on 4th down. You have a goal line stand, but when Ohio State was down there, you punch it in with 14 personnel, old school football. It's great to see that because those are turnovers, as Ryan Day said. I know we don't have you for forever. I want to get into the Big Ten. Biggest takeaway from the weekend for you, Bill, as far as where the Big Ten stands right now. You got Wisconsin loses their starting quarterback to potentially be back, but they go, they shut out Miami, but it's only 17-0. Michigan debuts a new starting quarterback. Indiana, a little bit there with Old Dominion. What are they? USC has a big win. Where are you? Penn State plays Nevada, right? Where are you sitting right now in the Big Ten as far as like who's for real, even though it's just still week 1?
Well, that middle class had some bumps. Rutgers had to hold off Ohio University. Nebraska easily could have lost to Cincinnati. That was Cincinnati got greedy late, when they were driving for the potential game tying field goal. I thought Michigan with Bryce Underwood, he's pretty good. He's got a live arm, and he lifted what was a lifeless passing game last year. Justice Haynes had a nice game, but we'll learn more about the Wolverines this weekend. They got to go to Oklahoma, and
they do.
John Mateer, he looks like the second coming of Baker Mayfield down there. He can play a little bit, so that's going to be one of the few exciting games. Well, there'll be more than a few exciting games. Illinois Duke's really interesting to me this weekend, believe it or not, because Mensa, the Duke quarterback, 389 passing yards. He was the one that got that huge NIL deal, remember? We were like, how did Duke pay this dude? Well, he's going up against Illinois on the road. Luke Altmaier looked good. If the Illini truly are that third or fourth best team in the Big Ten, they've got to go down there and take care of business in what should be a very good game. And the back and forth with Oregon coach Dan Lanning and Mike Gundy. Mike Gundy was pulling up, showing us his abs yesterday, and Lanning was taking shots at them about who pays and how you pay to win a championship. So I think that game might have a little bit of theatrics to it on Saturday.
That'll be terrific. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We got more with Bill coming up here after the break. Schlegs. Oh, yeah, Bill's the best here. I want to tell you about our friends over at Export. Parents, athletes, protect what matters most with Export mouthguards. Trusted by professional athletes, designed by NHL team dentists. Export mouthguards are scientifically tested to help absorb those high-impact hits, protecting both your teeth and your brain. They feature 3 layers of advanced protection, including a patented use of carbon fiber that they custom 3D print right to your grill. That thing just snaps right in. For more protection, better performance, max comfort, and clear communication. Focus on your game, not on your gear. Don't take chances with your safety. Visit exportguards.com/Bobby to save 15% on your order. Get them for your kids like Schlegs and I did. We'll thank you for it. We got Bill Bender still coming up next. All right, welcome back in the Bobby Carpenter Show. Wrapping up week 1 with Bill Bender. May even get into a little bit of week 2. Talks about how he was looking forward to Illinois and Duke, which is a game that I think that's a little under the radar, and Duke could maybe have something to say about the ACC. I wanted to look at another team that a lot of people maybe picked to be their national champ. Death Valley versus Death Valley, Tiger Bowl. And Clemson having a lead going into halftime and getting blanked in the second half. Could not really run the ball, and Nussmeier, to me, Bill, looks like the best quarterback of the weekend. Does Brian Kelly finally have that thing maybe headed in the right direction with this improved defense and a veteran quarterback?
They had that botch sequence at the end of the first half too, and we were all ready to write, hey, BK screwed it up again on the road and all that, but he can coach. He's a good coach. I try to say this all the time, and a little bit of an I told you so moment for him, and that defense, which is, again, nasty linebackers. How many you guys had to be in heaven this weekend watching all these good linebackers play. Whit Weeks, amazing. Harold Perkins had a good game. Their secondary's tough. And like you said, Garrett Nussmeier kind of got the better of Cade Klubnik in that matchup. So a huge perception win for the LSU Tigers. And it kind of saved the SEC, because imagine had we watched Texas lose in the early window, Alabama in the afternoon window, I know we can get into that if you want, and then LSU losing, that would have been a disaster hour for the SEC.
Well, that is, let's go to that, because
Go
that
to it.
is really kind of the untold story. And it's not just to me, Bill, that they lost, but it was on the road. And listen, when you get it going in Tallahassee, you get the champs, the tomahawk, and I'm watching that, like they literally, it looked like General Custer and Sitting Bull coming out there, like by the middle of the second half of that. But they were 14-point favorites and then got beat by 14, which is crazy. I mean, if you took the points on that with Florida State, you'd be feeling great. And this is the fourth loss to an unranked team for Kalen DeBoer in a year and a game. Nick Saban didn't lose a single time after his first year. And I'm not saying Kalen DeBoer is not a good coach. I'm just trying to figure out exactly what's going on there, because Bill, it was a beating up front. Like they could not block for Simpson.
Yeah, and General Custer didn't have to go back to Tuscaloosa and do a press conference on Monday. I mean, he didn't make it back for the press conference, unfortunately for him. But yeah, I don't know what to say about the non-preparedness on the road. You know, they've lost 4 of 5 on the road, and these are things that were taken for granted in the Saban era. I think on some level in Columbus they get taken for granted, because imagine if Ohio State lost 4 or 5 road games, and not just road games, places that, like if they went to Illinois and lost, and then Iowa, and then they had a non-con game against Florida State and got beat by 2 touchdowns. I thought the play that stood out, and I talked about it all week, was it was a 4th and 1 in their own territory. Florida State not only goes for it, they hand it to an Alabama transfer running back. He runs through a linebacker. They go get the game-winning touchdown. I mean, that was arrogant Florida State football I'm used to seeing over the years. And Alabama just listless all day. The defensive effort wasn't there. Nick Saban addressed it Monday night, of course, but you know, what can you say other than if they lose a couple more like that on the road, and their SEC road schedule's tough, we're going to be talking about that buyout and whether or not they can actually do it.
And that's kind of where, like, even we go back and look at Ryan Day, is like, I remember under Urban, like we had a Purdue game or the Iowa game, right? That set you back. Like he just doesn't lose those. Let's go to another one too, is like, where do you feel right now with Notre Dame and Miami? Good battle, hard game, came down to the wire. Carson Beck, new team, kind of reinvigorated. Is it more Miami's for real, or that's just 2 really good top 10 teams that are playing, and they both should still be in the top 10, and Notre Dame still has a chance, obviously, to make the college football playoff and do some damage, but it's more on the emphasis of Miami is better because their defense is better this year than they were last year.
Well, and an experienced quarterback versus a new quarterback. I thought CJ Carr had some bright moments. And
he did.
Marcus, nobody got outcoached. You know, nobody made the big mistake other than Miami took the ball down and got the game-winning field goal.
It was that last 4 minutes of the first half when they scored. Like that was the one I'm looking. I'm telling my kids, like, you got to win that. You got to win this. And then they got the ball back in the second half. That kind of hurt them.
Yeah, and, you know, obviously Ruben Bain made quite an impression. What an edge rusher he is. And I think Miami has it in the trenches a little bit. Their offensive tackles are dominant. And Mario's good at that. You know, he's an offensive line guy. And they pushed him around. Carson Beck played within himself. Malachi Toney had a nice game. And for Notre Dame, like I said, CJ Carr, bright spots. The 3rd and goal where he reversed field twice and then has his eyes downfield, hits Micah Bennett. That was a great play. And I think for Notre Dame, it does increase the pressure a little bit. You've got to beat Texas A&M in 2 weeks. You've got to have one of those big victories, because if you look at the rest of their schedule, they're not going to have a moment like this. And man, the ACC's got to be feeling great, because Florida State and Clemson, the 2 brands that, you know, they expected to carry the conference when the Hurricanes joined in 2004, both look like they have their act together. And that would be good for the conference overall, especially after what we watched last night with Bill Belichick in North Carolina. That will definitely take more time. Was
that the most surprising thing of the whole weekend, Bill? I mean, I sat there, I'm like, okay, first drive, Bill's got it. They're going to win this game. The rest of the first half, not looking good. Maybe get it together at halftime. Herb Street's literally saying, huge series for the Tar Heel defense. If you get a stop, you're 20-7. You get a field goal, maybe a touchdown. Bill, 75 yards untouched. Like, it looked like how you draw it up as a coach. I'm trying to figure out if it's talent, if it was execution, both. It was wildly concerning.
Yeah, Kirk didn't even have the sentence out of his mouth, and I think the TCU running back was in the end zone. So it was bad halftime adjustments, total disaster in the second half early, and the turnovers killed him, the 2 defensive scores. Now, what I'm interested to see as they go to Charlotte this week is, do they turn to Max Johnson? Max Johnson's a 6-year quarterback. He's played in big games between Texas A&M and LSU. Does that maybe steady and slow down this offense a little bit? They couldn't get the running game going. 1 of 10 on third down. Yeah. That one stuck out to me. I mean, you have all those things, and it's easy to pile on Arch Manning, and it's easy to pile on Bill Belichick, and that's what we do, and Kellen DeBoer for that matter. But we're going to find out in week 2 about some of these teams. Schlegs, you talked about the big spreads. There aren't a ton of really awesome games unless you really like Iowa State, and Kansas, Missouri, which I do. So there'll be plenty of excitement in week 2.
All right. Before we get you out of here, you're a known Packers fan. Micah Parsons landing with your Packers from the Cowboys. I mean, this kind of feels like the Charles Haley from San Francisco to Dallas going from there to Green Bay. It's a pretty remarkable thing, and the odds shifted dramatically for the Packers here over the weekend.
Yeah, and they've got a big 2 weeks. They play Detroit on Sunday, and Dan Campbell and the Lions have had the Packers number. I mean, that's reality. You live in a reality where Detroit's been able to kind of punk them up front and run the football. So we'll see if Parsons changes that. From a personal level, yes, there is a ton of excitement as a fan. I told the story last week. One of my best friends, when the Packers signed Reggie White when we were like 6th grade, I called his house on an old phone, and I just screamed Super Bowl and hung up. And now, 30 years later, I was sending that text the other day. I just said Super Bowl. I'm too lazy to call. I just sent a text. So, we always dream. I have a lot of friends in Lancaster, obviously, a couple family I'm close with. We've always dreamed of a Bengals-Packers Super Bowl, and I think we're one step closer.
Absolutely, Bill. We appreciate the time today. Thank you for joining us. Look forward to talking again next week. I'm sure there'll be some big games that we don't even know about because college football always delivers.
Hey, you guys are the best. Thanks so much. I'll see you next week.
See you, Richard.
Was our guy, Bill Bender. I want to tell you about our friends over at Backer. Just getting cool. They've got the premium Buckeye gear that you're looking for, the wind, the rain, the cold. They've got you covered with it, and it's starting to get a little chilly. So go to bckr.com. Get the products that look great, that feel great, that have all the features you're looking for. It's going to be chilly this weekend. I might even
really
out my windbreaker. If it stays like this, I definitely will for the OU game in a couple of weeks because it'll be chilly at night. Use promo code all caps BOBBY Bobby at checkout to get free expedited shipping. Again, that's bckr.com. Backer, go check them out. We got our headlines coming up next.
Create it, experience, results. That's what drives growth. That's what builds brands. That's Lake Spur Marketing, a full-service agency built on trust, strategy, and performance, not fluff. From bold strategies to flawless execution, every campaign is rooted in smart planning and driven by clear goals. We don't chase clicks. We build partnerships. We show up, dig in, and deliver every single time. Lake Spur Marketing. The proof is in our partners.
I want to tell you, Schlegs, about our friends over at Lake Spur Marketing. They're the full service ad agency. They're going to take you from soup to nuts, from the very beginning to the end. They're going to walk right with you to deliver that customized, that tailored service, the concierge service that you're looking for to help you grow your business. And so they can leave you to do what you do best, which is help run your business. Lake Spur Marketing, they don't go with all the new gimmicks. They use tried and true methods, and there's no static set it and forget it strategy. They're going to customize a strategy to fit your business within your industry. So go check them out, lakespurmarketing.com. Lake Spur Marketing, the proof is in their partners. All right, Schlegs, we had 4 big fourth down stops, and this was huge. If we can toss that up there, Pat. Take a look at this. Every one of them, man. This was like they were all different, all unique, and that was absolutely tremendous. Here we go.
And belly, boom.
And he won't get it.
That was a good one.
That was the tone setter. Sonny coming down off the edge. They collapsed the inside. That was Arvell. Arvell, with the tackle coming in. We can go to the next one. Right here. This is the one that was epic. And Schlegs, I don't know if you realize this. Caden Curry is in there at like the shade. You got K-Mac over top of the nose at the center position. And then Caden Curry, you can see getting up right there. He was right beside him. And so they're sliding him in there to be that extra tackle piece.
Yeah, look at him. He's right there on the top left. Right. And he just went over the top. He went over the top. Those guys are getting so low. It's like sometimes like just jump over that guy. But that was also Edric was to his right.
Yep.
And did a good job of getting low and firing off the ball. It wasn't just like submarining. It was like, boom, there was no penetration. Watch Edric right here on the right. Boom. Edric did go low. Caden went over the top. Linebackers are there. Awesome job. And I saw him the other day, man. He looks good. He's about 262, man.
Yeah, looks
Caden's
good.
thick.
Let's switch that. Slide this to the next one. Here we go, starting to get some pressure and bringing a little heat. You know, he has a clean pocket, but this is what happens when you keep changing up the looks. He probably had the slant coming under quickly, but they've got a poach safety coming over, as you can see on the two unders. They call that Schlegs like the chair route. Double in by the outside guys, run the 7 route over the top, and they have the safety coming over late. He probably could have got it in there, maybe. I don't know if it's a touchdown, but a first down. But a good job by Matty P. And then here's finally the last one.
And IGB too, man. That was a good job by IGB.
Oh, yeah. Great job finishing the play. But they've got 3 guys down. They've been walking up backers, bringing different guys all day. And they just turned CJ loose off the edge. He gets there, and then a great sure tackle. You know, we talked about Caleb Downs. Like, he don't miss tackles at all. And so they turn him free. They're only bringing 3 guys.
So look at all the overload guys on the bottom right. So you got like from the nose, you had 5 dudes in that window. And I don't know how they still they did slide protection. That right tackle didn't know who he's supposed to block.
Yeah. And why? Because they were probably sliding. I think that's Arvell in the middle, and they were probably trying to pick him up right there on the left, but he doesn't come. And I think the guard and tackle were IDing him in case they had 2 off the edge. I don't know. But that's what happens when you mix it up that much. It was absolutely unbelievable. You can have a team go 1 for 5 on 4th down with, and believe me, people say, well, that's unlucky. Some of it's unlucky, but a lot of it's situational football. This team was really good on 4th down last year. They were really good in the red zone last year. Hopefully we'll be able to maintain that and continue to grow that. But that comes down to the preparation, the planning, and being able to go out there and execute. And if you're able to do that, then you can win.
There's no such thing as luck, man. When you that skill. And again, what does it do when you can disguise, when you don't know where you're coming? Preparation stops when the foot hits the ball, and you can only rely upon the level at which you have been trained. And then when they start going live bullets week 1, how do you react? How do you respond? And if you don't know, and if you're not sound in the fundamentals, those things get exposed in the heat of the moment. Just like you said on the 4th down, that could have been there. Where's that? But then it also goes back. That was great coverage by IGB and somebody that said, "Oh, I hope he doesn't have as many penalties." Played a clean game, was a leading tackler of the game. Like he was all over the place and did really, really good job.
Absolutely. All right. We're going to get to our tailgate talk coming up next. We'll answer your question. There's some good questions in there. And then there's a guy, Colin Simmons, who really good player, very talented, but said he was excited to play in Julian Saying because he couldn't wait to, get some sacks or whatever. He had a great comment before. We'll give you his stat line here coming up next on the Bobby Carpenter Show.
Creative, experience, results. That's what drives growth. That's what builds brands. That's Lake Spur Marketing, a full-service agency built on trust, strategy, and performance, not fluff. From bold strategies to flawless execution, every campaign is rooted in smart planning and driven by clear goals. We don't chase clicks. We build partnerships. We show up, dig in, and deliver every single time. Lake Spur Marketing. The proof is in our partners.
All right, throw up, before we get to some of your questions, throw up that stat line for Colin Simmons, Pat. Looking at that, 2 tackles, 1 solo, 0 sacks. He got the face mask penalty, which I believe did that negate the safety in the end zone. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the 1 costly face mask penalty as well. And he's going to be a good player, but you run your mouth, you talk a lot. You better be sure to put it up, and didn't quite put it up in the biggest way. All right, Schlegs, we had some good questions up here in the chat earlier. Gosh, where was that one? There was a couple that were really good earlier in the show. You got anything for us, Schlegs? No?
Well, it's your show. We've had so many in here that I've just been kind of answering off the cuff. And that's kind of what I do when I get on the chat. But goal line stop was beautiful. I don't know. I think what you do, Bob, is let's talk. Oh, there was a great one about the running game. I forget. This was way at the top.
Oh, yeah. That's the one I was looking about, the running game.
Yeah, it was kind of like it was, what do you say? A little bit of mundane, not a lot of flair, right? It was kind of stale, I think is what it said. And then another question was, is that more of the offensive line or is it more of the running backs? That was part of the two. I think Terry might have thrown the second question out there. The first one came from somebody else. And I remember it because I said something. But yeah, that's the question. I'll leave it to you, Bob. What do you think about the running game?
So the running game has work to do. And they weren't great. I think they're about 80 yards. They were able to get it in when they needed to on fourth down, which was big. But they weren't as nearly as explosive as I think you would like to have seen them. And so with that, like some of that's the offensive line. We did see some great double teams and focus on some stuff. The Texas defensive front is good, but there is going to have to be some emphasis, guys getting downhill. I'm going to have to go rewatch it to see if some of the lanes were there. There were multiple in their front. Here it is. The running game looks blah with no creativity. This charm or this scheme or lack of experienced players kept it to up the middle. Like some of it depends on what they're doing. Like perimeter runs are nice, but it's not like that's the best way to do it all the time, depending on what they're playing and what's out there. So like I said, I'm going to have to go back and rewatch some of the run game. I've looked at the defense pretty closely to see where everybody's at. And maybe there was times where it's blocked up and guys didn't get it. Maybe there are things that were there that they didn't see. And maybe sometimes it wasn't blocked all that well. It's usually kind of a combination of both.
And it's also in live bullets, different fronts, different blitzes happening at the same time. Maurice and I have talked about just kind of the understanding of where the free hitter is going to be. Who do I got to make it miss? How do I have patience to see the hole and accelerate through to get 4 to 5 to 6 yards as opposed to like trying to hit the home run? I think that will all come in time. And so a part of it to me is a little bit what you said on offensive line. Part of it is you have two running backs. Part of it is exactly what Bill Bender mentioned, the fact that you're replacing two guys that were in the top 50 draft picks that were both 1,000-yard rushers. And it's also week one, and it's also versus a top 10 defense in Texas. I think you got to put all of that together. And you say, hey, there's room for improvement. Let's get back to work and let's get better for Grambling. That's it. That's how you do it.
This came from Terry Slusher, hoping our punting gets better. Texas had better field position most of the game. Some of that was when we didn't get the fourth down in the middle of the field, and then Texas obviously got it, was able to pin it. Texas did a great job with field position. Their special teams were really good. And I want to say Ohio State started inside their own 20 multiple times, started inside their own 5 even. I mean, they're on the goal line. And so they did a good job getting some movement, creating some space. But the field position battle was definitely won by Texas.
Yep. And it was won by Texas for those situations, Bob. And then you gotta make sure you capitalize. And then that goes back to exactly what Tress said, complementary football. Like you got it out, right? You punted it down. Now does the defense do their job? Then are you able to do the offensive job of get 2 first downs and potentially flip the field position? And I'm with you guys. And also, I'm not going to lie, I'm not a huge fan of the rugby punt stuff, but it is what they do. So, you know what? There was a couple of ones where we got down to the 15. I think there was one, I can't even remember. But I will say this. I do remember this. I do remember watching Riley Pettijohn come down and blow up 2 dudes on a kickoff. Yep. I remember that. I remember watching Cade Stover fly down there and make a tackle on a kickoff. That was good to see.
There was a lot of good things, especially with some of the young players. And so they're going to get out there. They're going to get a lot of play these next couple of weeks, and we'll talk about that here, obviously, as the week goes on. That's it for our tailgate talk. Coming up, Schlegs will wrap up the show with his parting thoughts.
Create it, experience, results. That's what drives growth. That's what builds brands. That's Lake Spur Marketing, a full-service agency built on trust, strategy, and performance, not fluff. From bold strategies to flawless execution, every campaign is rooted in smart planning and driven by clear goals. We don't chase clicks. We build partnerships. We show up, dig in, and deliver every single time. Lake Spur Marketing. The proof is in our partners.
We got our final segment of the program where Schlegs gets his parting thoughts. This one's going to be going back to a little game day action, Schlegs, a little Corso, a little E2 Brute. Pat, if you want to toss that up and take a look at it, this will be tremendous as we wrap up the show.
I already thought this was a good one because, Ohio State, again, the atmosphere, pregame, all of the things, the game itself, the energy in the stadium. I mean, we're high-fiving, but look, I thought this was very cool. Oh, no, Pat, you picked the wrong freaking one. Anyways, bump that. I'll skip it. We'll go to this one.
All right.
Hey, Pat,
you lost your time, lack of execution.
No, that was not. Pat picked the wrong one. Hey, that was talking about coaches sleeping. Hey, guess what, everybody? Get out there and sleep.
Here's Brutus. Here you go.
Okay.
Look at him.
This is for you forever. For you forever. No take backs.
What do you do with that?
What do you mean? What do you do with that? You sit you sit it next to your bed and you pat it. You pat it. Or you just put it on and you wave.
That's amazing. It was great stuff. That was tremendous. Thanks, Pat. Thanks for the show today. Got a big one tomorrow coming strong with AJ. Stay locked in here so we keep it rolling all the way through the week on the Bobby Carpenter Show.